My daughter-in-law pulled my newborn grandson away from my arms and said, "You're too poor to touch him." My son stood there, silent. 8 years later, she appeared at my door with that same boy beside her. Only this time, she wasn't asking me to leave. She was begging me to save them. My name is Harold Bennett. I am 68 years old, and for 8 years, I carried a photograph in my wallet of a grandson I was not allowed to hold. His name was Noah. I saw him the day he was born, for less than 10 minutes. He had a red face, tiny hands, a small cry that sounded like he was already angry at the world. I remember standing beside the hospital bed with tears in my eyes. My son, Michael, smiled at me. "Dad, you want to hold him?" I nodded. I was so afraid my hands would shake. I reached out slowly, but before Noah touched my arms, my daughter-in-law, Claire, pulled him back, hard. Then she looked at me like I had dirt on my skin, and said, "You're too poor to touch my son." The room went silent. Even the nurse stopped moving. Michael looked at Claire, then at me. I waited for him to say something. Anything. "Claire, don't talk to my father like that. Dad worked hard his whole life. He has every right to hold his grandson." But my son said nothing. That silence hurt more than Claire's insult, because I expected cruelty from her. I did not expect cowardice from him. Claire adjusted the blanket around Noah and said, "I don't want him smelling like cigarettes and cheap clothes." I had not smoked in 20 years. My shirt was clean. It was old, but clean. I looked down at my hands. Rough hands. Mechanic hands. Hands that fixed engines, paid bills, buried my wife, and raised my son alone. Apparently, those hands were too poor for her baby. I stepped back. Michael whispered, "Dad, maybe later." Maybe later. That was the last thing he said to me in that room. There was no later. Claire made sure of it. At first, I thought it was one bad moment. Hospitals are emotional. New mothers are tired. People say things they don't mean. That is what I told myself. Because old fathers are very good at defending children who disappoint them. But weeks passed. Then months. No visits. No calls. No pictures unless Michael sent them secretly. And even those stopped after Claire found out. One day, I drove to their apartment with a small gift. A wooden train I had carved myself. Nothing expensive. Just something for my hands. Claire opened the door. She looked at the train. Then at me. "We don't eat homemade junk." I said quietly, "It's for Noah." She smiled. "Cold. He has real toys." Then she closed the door. I stood there holding that train like a fool. Through the window, I saw Michael inside. He saw me, then looked away. That was the day I stopped knocking. Not because I stopped loving them, because there are only so many times you can let someone close a door on your dignity. For 8 years, I lived alone in a small house at the edge of town. People thought I was broke. Claire definitely did. Maybe Michael did too. I drove an old pickup, wore work boots, fixed lawn mowers for neighbors, bought groceries with coupons. I did not talk much about money. Never had. My wife, Ruth, used to say, "Harold, you could hide a mountain under a napkin." She was right, because what Claire never knew was that poverty and simplicity are not the same thing. After Ruth died, I sold my repair shop building to a developer. The land was worth more than anyone expected. Then I invested quietly, a little in storage units, a little in local property, a little in a part supply company my old friend started. By the time Noah was born, I was not rich in a flashy way, but I was comfortable, very comfortable. I could have bought Claire's apartment building. I just didn't look like the kind of man she thought money belonged to. That was her mistake. But I did not use money to prove myself. Not then, because I did not want to buy access to my grandson. Love that has to be purchased is not family. So I stayed away. And I waited. 8 years is a long time to wait. Long enough for anger to cool. Long enough for hope to embarrass you. Long enough for birthdays to become wounds. Every year, I bought Noah a small gift. First birthday, wooden train. Second, a red toy fire truck. Third, a baseball glove. Fourth, a children's book about dinosaurs. Fifth, a small fishing rod. Sixth, a blue bicycle helmet. Seventh, a telescope. Eighth, a chess set. I wrapped every gift. wrote his name on it, then placed it in the spare room. People called it sad. Maybe it was. But to me it was proof. Proof that love can exist even when access is stolen. Then one rainy evening, someone knocked on my door. I opened it, and there stood Claire, 8 years older, less polished, no designer purse, no cold smile. Her hair was tied back carelessly. Her makeup was gone. Beside her stood a boy with wide eyes and a backpack. Noah, my grandson. He looked at me like I was a stranger, because to him, I was. Claire swallowed. Harold. I looked at her, then at the boy. My voice almost disappeared. Noah. He looked up at Claire. She said, "This is your grandfather." Grandfather. After 8 years. The word felt stolen and returned damaged. I stepped aside. "Come in." Claire entered slowly. Noah stayed close to her. I did not reach for him. Not after what happened the first time. Not until he chose it. Claire looked around my small living room. Same old couch. Same curtains. Same worn coffee table. She probably still thought I had nothing. "Good," she said. "We need help." I waited. She looked at Noah. "Go sit in the kitchen for a minute." He hesitated. I said gently, "There are cookies in the blue tin." His eyes moved to mine. Kids always understand kindness faster than adults. He walked to the kitchen. Claire waited until he was gone, then whispered, "Michael is gone." For a second, I thought she meant dead. My chest tightened. "What do you mean gone?" She looked away. "He left." The room became still. She continued, "He took everything he could. Cleaned out the accounts. He's with another woman." I sat down slowly. My son. The same boy I raised alone. The same boy I protected from hunger, cold, bullies, and grief, had abandoned his own child. Claire wiped her face. "I don't have anywhere else to go." That sentence should have made me feel powerful. It didn't. It made me tired. Because family pain does not become satisfying just because the cruel person finally needs you. I asked, "Why come here?" She stared at the floor. "Because Noah asked about you." That surprised me. How does he know about me? Claire's face changed. Guilt. Real guilt this time. She said, "Michael kept one photo." My throat tightened. She continued, "Noah found it. He kept asking who you were." I looked toward the kitchen. Noah was sitting at the table, looking around quietly. Claire said, "He said if he had a grandfather, maybe we should ask him." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because a child had more courage than both his parents. Claire then said the sentence that brought back the hospital room instantly. "I know I don't deserve your help." I looked at her. "No, you don't." She flinched. "Good. Some truths need to land." She whispered, "I was awful to you." I said, "You were cruel." She nodded. "I know." "No," I said. "You knew then too." That one broke her. She covered her face. But I did not comfort her. Not yet. Because tears do not erase 8 years. I asked, "Where is Michael now?" "Florida, I think." "You think?" He stopped answering. Of course he did. Cowardice grows when no one makes it face consequences. Then Noah walked back in. He held the cookie tin with both hands. "Can I have 2? I looked at him. Something inside me cracked open. "You can have 3. He smiled. It was small, but it was enough to hurt. Claire slept on the couch that night. Noah took the spare room, the room with 8 years of gifts. I had forgotten to lock the door. Around midnight, I heard a small voice. "Mom." Then footsteps. I walked down the hall and found Noah standing inside the spare room. He had opened the closet. All the wrapped gifts were visible, every one labeled with his name. He turned to me. "These are mine." I nodded. His voice got smaller. "All of them?" "Yes." He touched the wooden train. "Why didn't I get them?" I had no answer that would not hurt him. So I said, "Sometimes adults make mistakes that children should never have to carry." He looked at me for a long time, then asked, "Did you know my birthdays?" That question nearly ended me. I nodded. "Every one." He looked back at the gifts, then picked up the chess set. "Can we play tomorrow?" My voice broke. "Yes." He smiled again, and for the first time in 8 years, I slept without feeling like I had lost him completely. But peace did not last. It never does in stories like mine. The next morning, Claire told me everything. Michael had been lying for years. Credit cards, loans, gambling, another woman, a fake consulting business. He had used Noah's education fund, then drained Claire's savings. And when everything collapsed, he left her with eviction notices and debt collectors. I listened quietly, then asked, "Did you know he was using people?" She looked ashamed. I knew he exaggerated. That meant yes. She continued, "I thought he was ambitious." "No," I said. "He was reckless." She nodded, then whispered, "I thought you were beneath us." There it was. The truth. Not softened. Not dressed up. Just ugly. I looked at her. "Why?" She cried quietly. "Because I came from people who measured worth by appearance. Michael told me you had nothing. I believed him because it made me feel superior." I appreciated the honesty. But honesty after damage is not nobility. It is cleanup. I said, "You kept my grandson from me." She whispered, "I know. You let him grow up thinking I didn't care." She sobbed, "I know." I leaned forward. "You called me too poor to touch him." She closed her eyes. "I remember." "So do I." That silence stayed between us. Then I said, "I will help Noah." Her eyes opened, "But not because you asked." She nodded quickly. "I understand." "No," I said. "You don't." I stood up. "I will not be your emergency shelter while you decide whether poor old Harold is useful now." She lowered her head. "I deserve that." "Yes," I said. "You do." That afternoon, I called my attorney. His name was Thomas Reed. He had handled my estate planning for years. When I explained the situation, he said, "Harold, be careful." "I know." "No," he said. "You don't. People who rejected you when they felt powerful may become more dangerous when they feel desperate." He was right. Desperation changes people. Sometimes it humbles them. Sometimes it reveals them. I told Thomas to prepare temporary guardianship options, school enrollment support, and financial protections for Noah. Not Claire. Noah. Then I made another call. To a private investigator. Not for revenge. For truth. Because Michael had abandoned a child. And I needed to know what kind of mess he had left behind. Over the next 2 weeks, Noah and I built a routine. Breakfast at 7. School paperwork. Chess after dinner. Stories about Ruth. He asked about her often. Was Grandma nice? I smiled. She was kind. But she could scare a grown man with one look. Noah laughed. That sound became my favorite thing in the house. Claire watched us sometimes from the doorway. Quiet. Guilty. I could see regret eating her slowly. But regret is strange. It does not fix what it finally understands. One evening, Noah asked, "Why didn't Dad bring me here before?" The question came during chess. Simple. Direct. Children do that. They put knives on tables without knowing they are sharp. I moved a pawn. "I don't know." He looked at me. "Did you and Dad fight?" "Yes." "About me?" I paused, then said, "Not because of you. Never because of you." He nodded slowly, then whispered, "Mom said you didn't want us." I looked toward the hallway. Claire had heard it. Her face crumpled. I said carefully, "That wasn't true." Noah looked down. I thought maybe I did something. I stood up and walked around the table. Slowly, I kneeled beside him. Noah listened to me. He looked at me. "You were loved before you knew my name." His eyes filled. "Mine too. That room upstairs, those gifts, that was me loving you when I was not allowed to show you." He cried then, quietly, like a child trying not to be a burden. I held out my arms. This time, he came to me, and I finally held my grandson, 8 years late, but still real. Claire cried in the hallway. I did not look at her. Some moments do not belong to the person who broke them. Then the investigator called. His name was Marcus Hill. Retired police. No drama. Just facts. He came to my house with a folder. And what he told me changed everything. Michael had not just left. He had been planning to disappear financially for months. He had taken loans in Claire's name, used Noah's social security number on 2 fraudulent accounts, forged signatures, and worse, he had contacted a buyer about selling something he did not own. My property. My land. Apparently, Michael had told people I was old, confused, and ready to sign things over. I sat there holding the report. My son had not only abandoned me emotionally years ago, he had circled back financially. Like a vulture, Claire stared at the papers in horror. I didn't know. I looked at her. Did you know he wanted my money? She said nothing. That answer was enough. Thomas acted fast. Fraud alerts, legal notices, protective filings, police reports were needed. And then came the twist Claire never expected. My small house was only the surface. Behind it was land, storage units, rental income, business shares, trust accounts, and a protected education trust one had created for Noah the year he was born. Yes, even after Claire humiliated me, even after Michael vanished, I still created something for Noah. Not because I thought I would ever see him, because love does not always need permission to prepare. Thomas looked at Claire and said, "Mrs. Bennett, your son's education was funded before he could walk." Claire covered her mouth. Noah was not in the room. Thank God. Claire whispered, "How much?" Thomas looked at me. I nodded. He told her. She sat down like her knees failed, because the amount was enough to pay for college, graduate school, a first home if managed carefully, more than Michael had ever saved, more than Claire had ever expected. She started crying. Not loud, not performative. Destroyed. You did that after what I said to you. I looked at her. No. She looked confused. I did it because he was innocent. That sentence stayed between us. Then came the first real confrontation with Michael. He called 3 days later. Different number. I answered. His voice was too casual. "Dad." I said nothing. He continued. "Claire's being dramatic." Still the same boy. Avoiding responsibility with charm. I asked, "Where are you?" "Florida. With the woman you left your family for." He sighed. Don't start. Don't start. After 8 years of silence. After abandoning his child. After fraud. He told me not to start. I said, "You used Noah's name for credit." Silence. Then, "That's not what happened." "Then explain it." He snapped. "You always do this." I almost laughed. Do what? Act morally superior. That one hurt. Not because it was true. Because he had no better defense. Then he said, "Claire came to you, didn't she?" "Yes. She always does that. Plays victim." I looked toward the kitchen. Noah was drawing at the table. I lowered my voice. "You left your son," Michael said. I needed to breathe. That sentence ended something in me. Because fathers do not get to disappear because life feels tight. I said, "Noah is safe." Michael's voice changed. "What does that mean?" "It means you stay away until attorneys decide what happens next." He laughed bitterly. "You think you can take my son?" I said, "No, Michael. I think you already gave him away." He hung up. But I knew he would not stay gone. Men like Michael return when they smell money. And now he knew Claire had found me. A week later, he appeared at my door. No warning. No apology. A rental car in the driveway. New sunglasses. Old arrogance. Noah was at school. Claire opened the door and froze. Michael pushed past her. "Where's my son?" I stepped into the hallway. "Not here." He looked at me. Then around the house. "You enjoying this?" I said, "Enjoying what?" "Playing hero." Claire snapped. "You left us." Michael pointed at her. "You were always dramatic." She flinched. I noticed. For years, Claire had been cruel to me. But in that moment, I saw what Michael had become with her too. Cruelty travels. It does not stay pointed at one person. Michael turned to me. "You think because you fixed a few lawn mowers and saved pennies you can judge me?" There it was again. The poverty story. I said calmly, "You still think I'm poor?" He laughed. "Dad, look around." I looked around too. Old couch. Plain curtains. No marble. No luxury. Then I said, "Your problem was always that you confused simple with empty." He frowned. Before he could speak, Thomas walked in behind him. I had called him the moment Claire saw Michael's car. Thomas handed Michael an envelope. "What's this?" Thomas said, "Notice of legal action related to identity misuse. attempted fraudulent property representation, and abandonment-related custody filings. Michael's face changed. What the hell is this? I said, consequences. He looked at Claire. You did this. Claire straightened. For the first time since she arrived, she did not look afraid of him. No, you did. Michael stepped toward her. I moved between them. Slowly. He looked at me. You want to fight me, old man? That hurt more than he knew, because I still remembered teaching him how to ride a bike, buying him ice cream after Little League, holding him when his mother died, and now he looked at me like an obstacle. I said quietly, no, son, I wanted to raise you better. That hit him. For 1 second, he looked like a child again. Then the mask returned. You'll regret this. I nodded. I already regret plenty. He left, but the damage he caused stayed. Noah came home that afternoon and sensed everything. Children always do. He asked, was Dad here? Claire started crying. I answered honestly, yes. Did he ask about me? That question broke the room, because technically yes, but not the way Noah meant. I said, he asked where you were. Noah looked down. Oh, just one word. Small. Flat. That was the sound of a child lowering expectations. I hated my son for causing it. That night, Noah knocked on my door. Grandpa. The word stopped me. First time. Grandpa. I said, come in. He stood there holding the wooden train. The old one. The first gift. Can I keep this in my room? I nodded. It's yours. He looked at it. Did you make it? Yes. Dad never made me anything. I had no answer. He climbed onto the chair beside me. Are you poor? The question was innocent, but Claire's voice was inside it. I smiled sadly. Why do you ask? Mom said you were. I nodded. I'm not poor, Noah. He looked confused. Then why do you have old stuff? I looked around the room. Because old stuff remembers things. He thought about that, then asked, are memories expensive? I nearly cried. Sometimes. The legal process moved slowly. Claire filed for emergency custody protections. Michael fought, not because he wanted Noah, because he wanted leverage. He claimed Claire was unstable, claimed I was manipulating them, claimed he only left temporarily. Then he made his biggest mistake. He demanded access to Noah's education trust. His attorney argued that as Noah's father, Michael should have financial oversight. Thomas laughed when he read it. Actually laughed. Your son just walked into the room wearing a sign that says motive. Court was tense. Claire testified first. She admitted what she had done to me years ago. That shocked everyone. Her attorney probably hated it, but it helped. Because for the first time, Claire told the truth without protecting herself. She said, I kept Noah from his grandfather because I was arrogant, because I thought money made people worthy, because Michael encouraged that belief, and because I was cruel. The judge listened. Claire cried, but she kept going. I cannot undo that. But Mr. Bennett protected Noah when we had nowhere else to go. Then Michael testified, and he performed exactly like I expected. Charming, wounded, misunderstood. He said, my father has always judged me. He said, Claire is unstable. He said, I only left because the marriage was toxic. Then Thomas presented the financial records, the fraudulent accounts, the forged applications, the attempted property inquiry, the drained education account Claire had created. Michael's face changed with every page, but the courtroom truly shifted when Thomas introduced the trust documents. The education trust one created 8 years earlier. The judge looked at the date, then looked at me. You created this shortly after the child was born. I nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Despite having no contact. My voice shook. Yes. Why? I looked at Noah's empty seat in the hallway. He was not allowed inside for this part. Then I said, because adults were angry, but he was innocent. The room went quiet. Even Claire covered her face. Michael stared at the table. For once, no charm came. No clever answer. No blame. Just silence. The judge granted temporary primary custody to Claire with strict financial oversight and supervised visitation for Michael. Noah remained in my home during the transition. Michael was ordered to cooperate with fraud investigation proceedings. He left court furious. Claire left broken. I left exhausted. There was no victory feeling, just the heavy relief of a child being safer than before. Months passed. Noah settled into school. He made friends, joined a chess club, started calling me Grandpa without hesitation. Every time he said it, something in me healed and hurt at the same time. Claire got a job at a local dental office. Not glamorous. Steady. She paid rent into an account Thomas set up. I did not need the money, but she needed accountability. At first, she tried to do too much. Cooking, cleaning, apologizing, over and over. One night I finally said, "Claire, stop trying to pay guilt with chores." She froze. "I don't know how to fix this." "You can't fix 8 years." She nodded, crying quietly. "But you can stop adding damage." That became our agreement. Not forgiveness, not trust, just no more damage. The strangest part was watching her become a mother without Michael's shadow. She became softer, still proud sometimes, still defensive, but different. She listened to Noah more, apologized when wrong, stopped pretending she knew everything. One evening, I found her sitting in the spare room looking at the birthday gifts. The wrappers were all open now, neatly folded in a box because Noah wanted to keep them. Claire held the red fire truck. She whispered, "I stole so much from him." I stood in the doorway. "Yes." She closed her eyes. "And from you?" "Yes." She looked at me. "Do you hate me?" I thought about it, then answered honestly, "I did." She nodded. "And now?" I looked toward the kitchen where Noah was humming while doing homework. "Now I don't have enough room for hate." That was the closest thing to forgiveness I could give. A year later, Michael came back again, but this time different. He had lost weight. His girlfriend was gone. His legal problems had worsened. His confidence looked cracked. He asked to see Noah. The visitation center arranged it. Noah agreed. I drove him there. Before going in, he asked, "Do I have to forgive him?" I said, "No." He looked relieved. "You just have to be honest with yourself about what you feel." He nodded. The visit lasted 20 minutes. Noah came out quiet. I asked, "You okay?" He looked out the window. He said he missed me. I waited. Then Noah said, "But he mostly talked about himself." That sentence told me everything. Michael still had not learned. Years passed slowly after that. Noah grew taller. His voice changed. He became good at chess. Better than me by 12. At 13, he found out more of the truth. Not all at once. Just enough. He asked me one night, "Did Mom really say you were too poor to touch me?" I closed my eyes. Claire was in the kitchen. She heard it. The whole house froze. I said, "Yes." Noah looked at her. Claire turned around, her face pale. She walked into the room slowly. "Noah," he asked. "Why?" Claire started crying before answering. "Because I was cruel. Because I was arrogant. Because I cared more about looking important than being good." Noah's eyes filled. "That's horrible." Claire nodded. "Yes." He looked at me. "And you still helped us." I said, "I helped you." He nodded slowly, then said something that broke Claire completely. "I'm glad you didn't become like them." Them. Not her. Them. That one word showed Claire exactly where she stood in his heart. Not hated, but not fully trusted. Consequences do not always scream. Sometimes they appear in one pronoun. When Noah turned 16, he asked to visit Ruth's grave. I took him. Claire came too, but stayed near the car. Noah stood beside the stone quietly, then placed the wooden train there for a moment. "I wish I met her." I said, "She would have loved you loudly." He smiled, then asked, "Would she be mad at Dad?" I laughed softly. "Your grandmother could be mad and loving at the same time." Noah nodded. "Like you." I looked at him. "Maybe." He leaned into me slightly. Not a hug. Teenage boys are careful with tenderness. But it was enough. Eventually, Michael stopped fighting. Not because he became noble. Because fighting cost money he no longer had. He moved away. Sent birthday texts sometimes. Noah replied politely. Nothing more. Claire never remarried. She once told me, "I don't trust myself to choose well." That was sad, but honest. The biggest change came when Noah turned 18. Thomas and I invited him to the office. Claire came too. Noah thought it was about college paperwork. It was. But not only that. Thomas explained the education trust, the investments, the conditions, the protections. Noah sat there stunned. You did this when I was a baby? I nodded, before I knew if I'd ever see you again. His eyes turned red. Why? I smiled sadly. Because you were my grandson before anyone allowed me to be your grandfather. Claire cried silently beside him. Noah looked at her, not angrily, just with painful understanding. Then he looked back at me. I don't know what to say. I said, you don't have to say anything. But he stood up, walked around the table, and hugged me. Hard, like the 8 years had finally caught up to both of us at once. That was the real ending for me. Not Michael's downfall. Not Claire's regret. Not the court orders. That hug. Because revenge may satisfy an audience. But restoration saves the person living the story. People think being poor means having nothing. Claire thought that. Michael thought that. Maybe even the world thought that when they looked at my old truck and worn-out boots. But poverty was never my bank account. Poverty was the way they measured love by appearance. Poverty was a son who forgot the hands that raised him. Poverty was a mother who kept a child from love because pride made her blind. And 8 years later, when everything they worshipped collapsed, the only thing still standing was the old man they thought had nothing. She said I was too poor to touch my grandson, but 8 years later, my love was the only inheritance he could still trust.